What's up YouTube, Dara here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you a test and combo video for the Adventure Synchro profile I showed you all the other day. So because this deck can go into very long extended combos, we're going to do one test and going first, one test and going second, to show you what the deck can naturally build and how it can perform. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. After a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, we'll do our starting hand going first, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, apart from opening up a secondary Tengu, that's actually a crazy good hand. Like, we've got access to all of our tuners, all of these are being played at 2 anyway, and then what you kind of ideally want to be doing off of the back of the Reborn Tengu is you want to be pushing yourself through in order to make your synchro plays. The idea is just to get to speeder. You want to be able to get to speeder with protection is the most ideal route, but being able to get to speeder without protection is still an option depending on what your opponent can present itself with. So, in this particular hand, you are going to normal summon a Reborn Tengu, and you're going to special summon, you're going to use Rev Synchron's effect in hand to synchro into a level 7. Now, depending on what 7s you play, will depend on what you can go for. Obviously, in the build that I showed you, we usually go for Black Rose, as it's a great option going second, and going first, it's not so bad either. The reason we also go for Rose and not for something like a Revolution Dragon is you kind of want that non-tuner on the board so that when you do spawn your board with the speeder monsters, you're not going to lose anything. Now, keep in mind that your Reborn Tengu is mandatory, so this will always be Chain Link 1, whereas Rose will end up being Chain Link 2. Now, the reason that sometimes can be quite good is technically you could use Rose to destroy the entire board, and then Reborn would summon from the deck. So that's really kind of cool, as long as you've got an extender in the form of something like an Assault Synchron to summon itself down, get you to a higher level Synchro or a higher level tuner, and then build off the back of that. In this scenario, we're not going to use Black Rose because obviously we're going first. We don't want to nuke the board. We want to keep Rose on the board, and we're just going to use Reborn Tengu. So this will then special summon one from the deck. Now, in this particular combo, it's not the end of the world that we've opened up a Reborn for the pure fact that you're not going to resolve the next one, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So because we've got a level 7 or higher, we're going to be able to add back or special summon back your Revolution Synchron, which is really important, and then that's going to mill you a card. So, Rite of Armoricia is what it is. So then what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to synchro your Rev Synchron, which is obviously a level 1, with your Tengu, which is a level 4. And this is going to give you direct access to speeder. Now, like I said before, this isn't all ideal. Ideally, what you want to be doing is you want to be able to make in a monster without having to go through with speeder with no protection. But there are times when you'll just open up the Reborn plate anywhere. On this one, again, Reborn is mandatory, but you don't have any more in the deck to do. So you'd still be chaining 1 Reborn and chaining 2 speeder. So unfortunately, you can't chain block the speeder, which is the one thing that Doppel Warrior will actually have over it. Even if you were to try and resolve this, because in our deck we still have access to a 3, a 4 when I find it, wherever it may be, a 1, a 2, and then the 4, your Reborn Tengu would actually fizzle anyway. So unless you've opened up multiple ones of these, you can't get to the board, you have to fulfill as many as possible. Now, in doing so, obviously your Stardust will now trigger. Your Stardust will allow you to add out your Illumination. Yeah, Illumination. But you don't want to activate it yet, you want to save that, as that is how you're going to get another non-tuner onto the board. Now, it's entirely up to you on where you'd want to go from this point on. You've got so many different plays. Like, you can go direct into a Crystal Wing, you can go direct into a Baron. The idea is just making sure you maintain your non-tuners on the board. And you ideally do want to be able to get into a Stardust play as well, because then that will mean you can activate your Illumination to get you your monster. Now, because off of the back of the Stardust, I can get into a Baron, I'm going to go directly into a Crystal Ring, just because that's going to give me my protection as I need it. So no longer a Nibiru. In the ideal scenario, when you're making this with your Stardust Synchron, then of course you protect everything. It means that when you tag its effect out, if they Nibiru you, whatever you summon cannot be is unaffected. So that's why Axel is so important. So in this particular scenario here, what you're going to do is you're going to use Jet and your Black Rose, and this is going to go into your Axel. Axel's effect will then give you the ability to bring back a level 2 or lower tuner. So the one you're going to want to bring back is your Jet. And then what you want to do is you can use the effect of Axel Synchron to tag out into Stardust, but you can save that. You don't need to do it right now, because the best thing you now have is you now have the ability of activating Stardust Illumination. And because you control a Stardust Dragon or a Synchron monster that lists Stardust Dragon in its text, you can actually special summon it rather than sending it to the graveyard. And what this does is gives you another free non-tuner on the board, which is really, really important. There we go. So now this is where you can kind of adapt your plays going forward. Now, if you want to get to your draws as early and as powerful as early as you possibly can to refill your hand, then of course you can sync these two together, and this is going to go into your TG, and this is going to mean that everything you do is going to be chain blocked, which is really, really nice, and that's going to be able to get you everywhere you need to go. So in order to do so, what you want to do here is you want to use Axel's effect just to make sure that your Baron then becomes, or the card you now make next, becomes unaffected. So Stardust will tribute out into Stardust Dragon, and then it will resolve, making you Synchro Summon. Now keep in mind your Hyper Librarian will get 2 chains after this because you have Synchro Summoned twice. So what you're going to do here is you're going to use your Stardust Synchron and your Stardust Dragon to go into your level 12, which will be your Crimson Dragon. This will then make you mandatory trigger Librarian, so Chain Link 1 and Chain Link 2, because obviously the Stardust is treated as a Synchro Summon, and then the Crimson Dragon. So draw 2. Illumination is now in the grave. The best thing is we haven't used a normal summon monsters like effect on summon, so we can still use the Water Enchantress if we want to, and we still have the Overtake. So we've got like full extension as possible already. Then what you want to do here is you want to tribute off your Axel Assault Synchron, and you're going to want to bring back your, wherever he may be, Stardust Synchron, and in doing so, because you tributed a monster, you can also bring back your Trail. Now again, it really is up to you on what you're fearful of and what cards you want to protect with. Now honestly, if I'm fearful of a Dark World no more, what I'm trying to go for, or what I'm going to ideally try and work my way into, is the Visas Aritara, and that's where it's going to get really, really important as well. So it's entirely up to you on how you want to push this one forward. You've got to remember as well, you still have Assault that can come back if you tribute off a monster, and you still also have Jet that can come back as well. Now the reason you'd actually bring back Jet is just because you can Foolish another Stardust, and you can adapt levels as you see fit. Because we've already used Tengu, we can actually just send Tengu, bring back Jet. Yes, I know it's once per duel, but it doesn't really make much of a difference. You're going to sync these two, and the important thing about this is you make sure you go into a Synchron or a Stardust. And in doing so, you can go Chain Link 1 mandatory of Librarian, Chain Link 2 will be Trail to spawn you a level 1 token. So you're going to draw a card off of Librarian. You can then activate Axel's effect. Axel's effect will then send a level 4 to the graveyard, being your second Stardust Synchron, which is why you play 2 of this at the base minimum. And you'll make Axel a level 9. You'll then sync again using the token and go into Baron. Whatever the Baron may be, I bet it is hiding in another deck. I've definitely misplaced my Baron. There's a great start on that one. But then the idea would be that you're going to go into your Baron. In doing so, that's your level 10 target for your Crimson Dragon. And you're going to get an additional draw off of Librarian. And you still have the ability to utilize the Librarian on the board as well, because then the Librarian, after it's given you so much more hand advantage, or regains you that hand advantage, it will then allow you to push into another follow-up, which will of course be another level 10, or you can go back into the Crimson Dragon should you be trying to aim for the push. There it is. Should you be able to aim or be trying to push for the Calamity's Banelock. There we go, there's my Baron. Apologies for that, I thought I was all set, ready to go. So of course, mandatory on your Hyper Librarian to draw you another card. You can now banish the Illumination. You can do this before or after, it doesn't make much of a difference. Make your Stardust a level 5, and then of course you're going to get the ability of your Crimson Dragon, target the Baron to put itself back and summon out your Dispatter. There we go. And then you've got the ability to draw off of Librarian again. And then you're going to be the ability to synchro these two together to go into a 10. Keeping in mind the Stardust is banished. And your 10 can now go into a Chaos Angel. So you use the light and the dark for your Chaos Angel. So all of your synchros are pretty much protected, can't be destroyed by battle. You've got Dispatter, you've got Baron, and you've got Crystal Wing. You've then, of course, depending on whatever you've drawn, have the ability with this particular hand to add Griffin Rider plus the token to the board as well. There are different ways that this board can end. I can also still bring back Dispatter if I wanted to. In doing so, I can use Dispatter's effect to bring back my Stardust Synchron, which is a level 4 tuner, so that when I bring down the token, this is going to allow me to go into something like an Omega. That's just all depending on what else I had in hand through the draws, but because the draws are never guaranteed, basically what you're looking for is you can either end your board like this, or in place of Chaos Angel, you actually end up going for a Omega, and the Omega would be banished to rip one from your opponent's hand. You'd use Dispatter to bring it back to the board and then banish it again, meaning that they're 2 cards back down. Or another option that you have as well is your Visas Ariatara. This is obviously going to give you your counter trap if you're worried about darkworld no more. So that kind of shows you the different options you have with what else you have available to you. Sometimes you don't even need to use Jet Synchron. Sometimes you go down a different route. Obviously, this was the least protective version because you don't really get your protection from the Biru. You don't really get your protection from everything else. That's usually where your adventure package comes into play, because once you've activated your adventure package, you're kind of protected from Ash Blossoms within a reasonable sense. You're able to chain block some of your plays, and you're able to set up protections, extensions, everything else you need to. So that's a typical kind of go first hand. Like I said, that's ideally the end board you want to be looking for, where you just kind of alternate the Chaos Angel with your other targets. So now what we'll do is we'll go second. We'll see what that additional card does. Again, you're really kind of betting to try and get into something like a board breaker in the form of droplets or thrusts or anything else. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, obviously we don't do well under Draw and Lockbird, but the hand is actually really good because Small World can get us to anything we need to, and I'll show you how you do that in a second. So you can special summon down Fenrir. You could choose to use Fenrir's effect, but we've already got one in the hand, and if you're really, really worried about the Biru, not the Biru, sorry, Draw and Lockbird, then the most important one that I would say to try and get to would be Small World. The issue is, if you're worried about Draw and Lockbird, you need to make sure that you get to a card that is going to be useful. And what I mean by that is, if you're worried about Draw and Lockbird, you're not going to go to Water Enchantress, because then Water Enchantress is just going to get stopped. Overtake can special from the deck anyway, so that's something you don't even need to worry about. And then Tuning, of course, is another add. So it's just whether you really, really want that tuner. At the moment, it doesn't matter what tuner we get. Just having the Fenrir is not going to be enough. So my advice would be to activate the Small World, because that's going to give you the most possibility. So with this one, what you want to do is you'll reveal the Fenrir. We're going to obviously assume that we're not playing under Droll, just because, I mean, obviously if your locals is crawling with Droll, you'll play a little bit differently. So we'll activate the Fenrir on the field. We'll search out a second copy just so we've got fodder for later on in the turn. We'll activate Small World, reveal the Fenrir. And one little bit of kind of like tech note for this. When you activate the Fenrir to search, what this will then give you is it now means that technically when you activate Small World, you still have 4 cards your opponent does not know anything about. Whereas if you don't activate the Fenrir and then activate the Small World, you only have 3 cards that your opponent doesn't know about. So even though you know it's a dead Fenrir, your opponent doesn't know that. This card could be anything. It could be you haven't normal summoned yet, you haven't even activated the adventure package yet. It could be so much more. So that's one, obviously, little note to mind. So we're going to reveal Fenrir. Now this can get us to any tuner we need to, but to be honest, we've already got access to that. So what I'd be going for is I'd be going for a Water Enchantress. And to get to that, you're going to go Fenrir into Illusion of Chaos. So they both match 7. Earth and Dark, so they don't match. Psychic and Spellcaster, 24-24, 21-25. So none of that matches. And then what you're going to do off the back of your Illusion is this is going to give you access to your Water Enchantress. Because again, it only needs to match one attribute from Illusion of Chaos, so it matches Spellcaster, attack and defense stats don't match, attribute doesn't match, and level doesn't match. So these two will now get banished, and like I said, this is on the assumption that you are not playing under Droll. You'd activate Water Enchantress, this will then give you access to, of course, Right. You'd activate Right, this will then spawn you the level 4 token. Shout out to Ryan Watson on the tokens. And then you would resolve by activating Fateful Adventure. Luckily we didn't open up that one. There we go, Fateful Adventure. You can now activate Fateful Adventure nice and early to ditch the Draco back, re-equip the Draco back, and search out the Griffin, and then special summon down the Griffin. Now again, before you even activate Tuning, honestly I wouldn't, because I've got all the plays I need right now without even needing to like commit my normal summon. Like I said, at this exact moment in time, my opponent still doesn't know any of the cards in my hand. So when I activate Overtake, obviously you're going to want to reveal your Jet, wherever it may be. There you go, so you're going to reveal your Jet Warrior. This is then going to allow you to special Jet Synchron from the deck. This is like your golden hand. These are the combo you want to make. So if you get something like this going first, busted. So you go for the Jet. Then what you want to do is you want to Synchro here. Now this is of course going to be your 5th summon. But what this gives you the benefit of when you go into Axel is you'll get turn player priority. So Chain Link 1 will be Axel. If they go Chain Link 2 Nibiru, you go absolutely fine. Chain Link 3 Axel to tribute out. What would then happen is Axel would bring out Stardust. Your board would be Nibiru'd, like everything would go. And then you'd resolve the Axel to bring back the Jet Synchron. So you would still have stuff to maintain because your Stardust would be unaffected. That would stay on the board. And then you would still maintain the, obviously, level 9 Synchro play at that point. But you haven't conducted your normal summon. They don't know that you've got tuning or anything. And that will allow you to push your plays further forward. Again, we're going to go on the assumption that that doesn't happen just to kind of show you where you can go. So Axel would bring back Jet. And then if they go, okay, cool, you've done everything now. Activate Nibiru. You can still go Axel, Chain is Chain Link 2. This would then bring out Stardust. And then it would make you automatically synchro with what you have on the board. So let's use the example now. My opponent goes Nibiru. I'll go, okay, cool. Chain Link 2 of Axel, tribute out. And they go, oh, I didn't realize that was a quick effect. And you go, yep. So then what that means, that lets you do is you bring out Stardust and then you instantly synchro summon the token and Jet Synchron. And then you're going to bring out your Speeder. Now this is obviously all in one resolution. So after we bring out Speeder, your opponent's Nibiru will then resolve. And because these are both unaffected, you'd only lose the Fenrir. And your opponent's just giving you a fat stack token and cleared their own board off. And then you still got to go, okay, cool. After that's resolved, Speeder, and you go 1, 2, 3. So still in a very good position. So of course we've been able to summon out Speeder. Speeder is now going to summon out 3. Now we've already got the Jet in the graveyard, so you really need to kind of decide what levels you want on the board. So I'm going to go with Stardust, Rev, and of course Assault. Now also what you've got to remember is when you put that token on the board, before you even go into Stardust, you can actually use the Draco back to bounce a card on the board. So that's another bit of spot removal there for you. Now again, we're going to do the exact same play that I did before because Crystal Wing, believe it or not, is a massive aggressor going forward, especially if your opponent is playing high level monsters. Like he's going to be able to do most of the damage for you anyway. As it currently stands here, you've then got the ability to go for a 10 or you've got the ability to go for a 12. Entirely up to you. Really comes down to where you want to push it. You also have the 1 to come back off the Rev Synchron, and that's going to give you an 8 off the back of the Fenrir as well. So you've got loads of different plays to make. So on this one, just because we want to be aggressive, I suppose, let's go for, obviously, Rookie Error. Let's resolve the Stardust first before you even go into Crystal Wing. Doi. Illumination. You can activate Illumination. It's going to give you a level 4 to the board because we control Stardust. Very nice. Now, there's no point in going to the Aritama, in my opinion, because obviously, unless I don't feel I'm going to win the duel at that point, it's not going to get me anywhere. So what you want to do here is you can actually go into your Stardust Synchron. This can then go into Crimson Dragon. Off the back of that, you can then use your Assault and Stardust to go into Charge Warrior. So you go Chain Link 1 Charge Warrior, Chain Link 2 Stardust, spawn yourself a token, draw a card off the Stardust. And then you still have the ability of everything else in the grave. You still got your Stardust Synchron that can tribute and summon itself back. You still have Rev Synchron that can come back as well. And ideally what you're trying to do is you're trying to push yourself into a level 10, which is quite easily done. So now you've brought back this, you've got 2 options of an 8. You've got an 8 there and you've got an 8 there. Or you've got the ability to go into a 7 if you want to as well. Now, obviously it's a little bit late to go into a 7 because that's going to be Black Crows. You don't really want to be nuking your own board. If your opponent's got a hand, you can try and rip it apart with Omega. But you're ideally trying to move into your 10s now. So with this particular board here, obviously you want to move into your 10s. And that's where you're going to, as soon as you get 1 10 on the board, that's when you're in a great position. So a couple of different options to do on that one. Let's go with, what have we got? We've got a 1, 2, so we've got a 9 there. We're going to want to go for an 8 here. Again, this is all adaptive. You can change it up however you see fit. It's not really So you've got to mill one off a rev as well. It's not really like set in stone exactly how you have to do stuff. You just need to know when to do stuff, when not to do stuff. That's the real important play of it. I still have the Assault Synchron effect in hand, which is where it's going to come invaluable because we can use this, summon it down. We can then sync these together. You can go into a 10 of Baron. Crimson Dragon's effect on Baron to bring out Dispatter. And then, of course, effect of Baron's effect to pop a card. Still got plays to make. Haven't even conducted a normal summon, which is absolutely insane. Still have Jet in the graveyard as well. Still have the ability of Assault, which is going to come up because what we're going to do now is we're going to use Stardust effect in the graveyard, tribute off Dispatter, summon itself back. And then you'll be able to use the effect of Assault and the effect of Trail. Trail will summon itself back. Assault will banish itself to summon back Dispatter. You can manipulate these levels if you want to. You can get it up to a level 9. Ideally, you don't really need to push for something like that. You've got the ability of this being a 7. So if you wanted to go into a 10, you could do as well. So you've also got a card that can be brought back off Dispatter. So it really is up to you. So let's look to see where we want to go for. Now, ideally, we want to try and get to Chaos Angel. Not that it's a big issue right now. You could very easily just synchro these two together. Aritama, they're both going to get banished. Aritama is going to give you your, whatever it may be, counter trap, just for that follow-up if you need to. You still have the ability of activating tuning, and that can get you into another level 10. But honestly, with a board like this, and we haven't even used Jet, we haven't even like pushed anything else really. We haven't used Illumination. We still have 3 cards in the hand. This should be pushing the game. We've had a bounce back. We've had a pop off of Baron. Rather than going into Baron, you could have gone into Chaos Angel, and then you can still use Crimson Dragon to target the Chaos Angel to bring out Dispatter. You've got the Aritara as a follow-up. You've got your Fenrir, and the only reason we're keeping Fenrir on the board is when it declares an attack, obviously you banish one of your opponent's monsters face down, or cards face up. That is one of your opponent's cards that is face up, face down. So it really is insane the amount of aggression this deck has. It's just finding the right balance. Because it plays so many cards, it's finding the right balance of board breakers, combo starters, and everything else in between. Anyway, I hope this has been informative. I hope it's given you like a basic breakdown of what you should be expecting to get going first, what you should be looking to aim to get to going second as well, and then just constantly test it. This is the one big thing about this deck, is it has so many different avenues and so many different points of adaptation and change that you really do need to like just learn it inside and out. And there's so many different times when a card is like, it needs to be a specific tuner or it needs to be a specific non-tuner, and it's really, really important that you get that stuff right. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.